Golden Oyster Cult writes in, Josh Shapiro just announced his priority is business tax cuts, and he isn't afraid to work across the aisle for it. It's just a bunch of clowns. He and Klobuchar need to lose and lose hard. We need to primary all of these freaks. Here he is! Here he is! One of the front runners in 2028. Not if I have anything to say about it. Governor Josh Shapiro. I am a Democratic governor, more like a Democrat governor, with a plan to aggressively cut taxes for businesses by $10.5 billion in 2029. And I am ready to work with Democrats and Republicans to get it done. Okay, what is wrong with the Pennsylvania Democrats? Like, I thought this state was turning, it's like been turning blue. You got Shapiro elected. Didn't they hold on or get a Democratic majority in the state house, if I'm not mistaken? You could look that up, Bradley. Fetterman ran like a campaign that I guess it was like a deal with the devil with the Israel lobby, but it wasn't the way he is now. And now they're all acting like we've got to give Doge its due. Ugh, gross. He would be worse than Biden or Harris or Hillary.
Yeah, so they have
maybe not Hillary.
So they have that one vote majority because it's tied, but obviously the Dem governor and lieutenant governor break the tie there. But yes, I mean it's like they do control the governor's mansion as well as the state house,
and they had two Democratic senators.
Right?
What did Kyle Klinsky say below? Let's just pull up the tweet again. I want to see what he said because that triggered me. Disgusting. Yes. No one. Why are you doing this when there is like growing outrage about this very action? What a loser. Anybody but him. Seriously.
The thing is look at what's going on with the Liberal Party in Canada right now. Which is that they, through really nothing of their own doing, are standing to benefit from conservatism largely discrediting itself on the public stage. Only the stage like to the south of their country. It's what Labour did with Keir Starmer. You root out all of the Corbyn supporters and then wait for Boris Johnson to fail. And then all of the business people come to you because you're the last people. And that's who they care. Josh Shapiro does not give a fuck about normal people. And that is a lot of Democrats. They don't give a fuck. They want to talk. They want to be like Hakeem Jeffries, going to Northern California for some goddamn reason, talking to venture capitalists. That's the people that this part, and it's a failing on the personal level, but it's also structural. This is the post Citizens United world we live in, and it's going to take a lot of frankly conflict to get this over with, which is unionizing, tenant strikes, things like that, because these people aren't going to save us.
Yeah. Are we in the phones, by the way? Yes. Oh, I see it now. Okay, opening up the phone line, 646-257-3920. The Majority Report wardrobe coordinator Shapiro is really leaning into that Obama impersonation. Who dat? Emma, after your interview with Matt Shea and Jamie Tassin last week, I listened to their book, Clown World. Holy shit. I knew Andrew Tate was a piece of shit, but he's just such a loser. Could not thank you, Matt, Jamie, enough for exposing me to such a satisfying cachet of cringe. Well, there you go. Nicola said, LOL, Emma, this state is unbelievably reactionary. I love Pennsylvania, but blue does not equal progressive. I know. Look, I went to college in Easton, Pennsylvania, so I know a little bit about it and that area. And I have a lot of family in Pennsylvania. But it still is just odd to have to gain power like this, both Shapiro and Fetterman, and immediately run to the right when it's not like they're seeing a massive rightward shift. Like that Senate election in the campaign went down to the wire with Casey. Bingo Dango, when does Sam's Jubilee video come out? I think in a few weeks, right? Early March?
I guess March now.
It's still such a bummer they have to wait for that long. Kyle from Montreal, gentle print. Thank you. You corrected it earlier. I appreciate it. Sam from Ottawa, Trudeau isn't even unpopular. His polling rebounded with Trump's threats as well. PP lead was always entirely as artificial. Interesting.
It's funny watching somebody like Jordan Peterson try to navigate because basically his thing is, yeah, Canada's woke and sucks, and Alberta should try to get something from Trump.
Yeah, we should find some Jordan Peterson reaction to that. Calling from a 603 area code. Who's this? Where you're calling from?
Hi, it's me.
This is you.
Hi, I was actually the caller from 2 Fridays ago when phones were working, so pretty excited to get back on.
Oh, so glad we were able to get you back on.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm calling about something a little less dire, I think, than everything else that's going on, but it's pretty important to me, so I wanted to kind of get your take on it. And sorry, I didn't say this is Allie from New Hampshire.
Allie from New Hampshire, sure.
Yes. But there's just a lot of concern for me personally with, like, the national parks being defunded and stuff. Like, we already know that they're critically underfunded. And I know specifically during, like, campaign season, J.D. Vance was talking about, like, you know, taking back federal lands for drill, baby drill, and all that great stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. It's been really hard to find, like, solid information about, like, what actually is happening to the parks, what will happen to the parks. I'd like to get your take on it, and I'll hang up so you can just kind of talk about it. Thanks.
Sure, no problem. So the question is, what's going to happen to our national parks? Is that, sorry if I didn't fully hear that. People can correct me on the IM if I'm mischaracterizing it, but I think we talked a little bit about it today, or I headlined it, that Trump is trying to lay off a bunch of national park workers for seasonal employees. And I mean, some of the concerns are really about the firefighting elements of it, but they're also toying about the idea of selling off some of our federal lands to basically real estate developers.
Or drill them.
And drilling on them, exactly as you alluded to. And so I think it still remains to be seen, but that would be the kind of power, frankly, that it is within Donald Trump's executive power. Like, he could, there was this war back and forth about drilling between Biden and Trump, and Biden reversed some decisions. Trump's going to reverse some decisions. I don't know how much power we have to stop that, frankly, outside of protesting.
That's the sort of thing where I do think if he went after a lot of national parks, I think that would be politically, and this is what I thought in the first administration, it would have a political price. It would have certain people that don't typically complain about Donald Trump complaining about Donald Trump.
Yeah. Holtenheim, we need a legally binding political platform so badly. Pivoting into antithetical political stance post-election should be viewed as fraud against the Commonwealth.
I do think there should be something to about people who run under a certain party and then change. But you know, I don't know how. Ultimately, this sort of stuff is going to take more organization to keep them in line.
Sack tapping Bugatti Sushi said, but seriously, how does someone not do better than Bill de Blasio?
What?
I don't know.
De Blasio?
Yes, but it's a pun. Cast Iron Jake, they are going to start with privatizing more and more of the park and forest infrastructure, then they will sell off the land. Cast Iron Jake, lots of the park concessions, etc., were privatized in the past, and they are continuing to do it. But where we will see it first is our Black Lives Matter land, or BLM land, and our national forests.
Bureau of Land Management.
Yes. I thought you were making a joke at first about wokeness, but
I mean, Trump, Elon's cuts. They cut early education or special education funds for the use of the word transition that had nothing to do with gender transitions.
Well, they're just on a bunch of Adderall, these little minions, like going across,
using AI to search stuff.
Right. And then
That's all AI is. It's not some sort of sentience. It's a very powerful search machine. That's
right.
all it can ever be.
Now that we're on the topic, let's do 5, Bradley. Here is Chris Doles, an employee with the Army Corps of Engineers, speaking on CNN over the weekend about Elon Musk's role and Doge's role in cutting into the federal workforce. This is basically his reaction here as to what Musk's real motivations are.
I'm required by law to make it clear that I'm speaking only for myself and that my views aren't necessarily those of the agency. And more importantly, I'm not here just because I'm an employee of the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm also here because I'm part of a growing national network of federal workers who are fighting back against these attacks. Now, how will they backfill our positions? I don't think they have any intention of backfilling our positions. I think they're trying to deepen a crisis that already exists, which is the funding crisis, that our public services aren't sufficiently supported already. Federal workers are overworked as is. They're trying to deepen that crisis to justify further privatization. You look at Elon Musk, who's of course the architect and executioner here. He's already benefiting from more than $18 billion in federal contracts over the last 10 years. And he calls recipients of federal aid parasites. Elon Musk is the parasite here.
So you got this buyout offer, went to 2 million people. What did you make of it? What was your reaction?
The first thing I did was I reached out to other federal workers who I've been working with for the last couple of years to make our union stronger, to protect federal workers' rights. And what I found was that everybody was so insulted. We learned, of course, quickly that Twitter employees who received the same buyout didn't get the pay, that what we're dealing with here are con men. And we educated our members everywhere we could that this is a scam. We need to hold the line and protect the government that they're trying to break up because our services are so critical. In my corner of the government, we do dredging to maintain shipping channels so the economy can work. We build and maintain flood walls and levees to protect American homes and communities. We were the folks who built the emergency hospitals at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So really, our work touches everything from the economy as a whole to your local communities and your personal health and moments of public health crises. So, for the people who are trying to purge the government, we're trying to hold the line because it's those of us who have committed our careers to the public service that are going to keep it going if we can stop these attacks.
This is why this is just so important to make this case. There are over 2 million federal workers in the country. I saw that the AP had reported that the federal government is the biggest employer in the Kansas City area. So this isn't just coastal elites like Elon Musk and his online minions would like and bots would like you to believe. This affects thousands and thousands of regular people all across the country because the federal government has a role in shaping society. And the more and more this goes on, and I mean, it's hard for me to discern how much information is getting to people because there's just so many folks that just don't pay attention, right? But I hope this becomes clear that this isn't about fraud, waste, abuse, whatever excuse that he keeps repeating over and over again. It's about what Chris just said, the more than $18 billion in federal contracts over the last 10 years. It's about the fact that the FAA had the audacity to tell Elon Musk that he needed prior authorization before shooting a rocket into space. It's about the fact that Elon is entering into an agreement with Visa, the credit card company, and he wants to create a payment Venmo type system on Twitter, now X.
The populist.
Because that's been his fixation ever since his PayPal days. That's why he's looting around in the treasury and looking and trying to get access to everyone's personal data so that he has an advantage over his competitors. And we're supposed to pretend like this is an actual forensic audit. We already do that for the Pentagon, which they're eventually going to get to. And that's the one that is most shrouded in secrecy and also the one that Elon Musk benefits the most from. We also talked about how Musk is entering into an agreement reportedly with Boeing to make technology and work with them on their fighter jets. This is as corrupt as it gets. This is the natural endpoint of the post-Citizens United world, where corporations are people and money equals speech, and rich people have more speech by definition, so they have more of a say in our government. And now it's epitomized by the richest person on the planet doing that directly with his little 4chan minions and groypers who want to take a break from posting about how eugenics is a great idea to take a look at your private bank data so that Elon Musk gets a leg up on Venmo. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And it's a real shame that we see folks validating this narrative, and it extends from people like Josh Shapiro, who we just showed that tweet validating the narrative, to members of the media who repeat that this is about waste, fraud, and abuse. Our money in this matter is publicly available. The money that Congress allocates as having the power of the purse and gives to these agencies is publicly available information. Everything that Doge is putting out there, you can already find. They're just trying to claim that because it comes in text form and it's in the data spreadsheet, that it's the fraud, waste, and abuse that they're talking about, as opposed to the budget and the items that are agreed upon by Congress and then signed into law by the president.
And they're not even really going that far. They're just saying, look at all the stuff we found, without even really, the times that they gesture toward it, it's like adoption services for Lutheran churches.
Yes.
And the truth is that conservatives are stupid cattle. We saw this on January 6th when they said, oh, maybe Antifa let us in there secretly. It wasn't us that stormed the Capitol. It was maybe the secret Antifa thing. They'll do whatever these people want. That's why they're valuable to a rich guy like Elon Musk. That's why he threw the Nazi salute at that thing, is because that type of person is an authoritarian imbecile, and they are politically valuable to the right wing. So like Elon realized, oh, I can trade all these dummy yuppies who are buying my cars because they think I'm going to save the planet. Those people are harder to please than the stupid cattle that are on the conservative side of things, that are going to take all this stuff, which is, you have no examples of fraud. Not only that, Republicans have a trifecta that their voters delivered to them. They aren't even talking about the bills that they could pass with that thing. They are instead letting everyone else sort of sit back and watch a billionaire attack the government and usurp their power that their voters gave them, because they don't really, to be honest, let a daddy do it instead of us anyway.
That's exactly right. They are fundamentally okay with what Musk is doing, even when it usurps their power, even when we play Mike Johnson saying like, yeah, it's totally okay, even though we passed this bill, let's set the precedent that the billionaire can just say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like that, even after it's become law. It's still a win overall for conservatism and for the Republican project, because when government doesn't work, it creates a crisis, and they exploit that crisis with something called the disaster capitalism, right? But it's that you create shocks, and then when government doesn't work for people, what does that make people think? Oh, well, I guess we need more people to go in there and root out the waste, fraud, and abuse. I guess it's just so beyond repair that it's time for us to reconstruct it in the image of, I don't know, Elon Musk, just picking a name out of a hat, or Mark Andreessen, or Mark Zuckerberg, or any of these other tech billionaires who have subscribed to this very self-serving Curtis Yarvin logic about how we need to remake the federal government and other governments around the world in the way that favors these tech oligarchs. It creates a sense of precarity between people and the federal government. That's all that these folks need. In the same way that TurboTax does. When you dread doing your taxes because you have to pay for them, because for some reason you have to pay $120 to file your taxes, state and local, or state and federal, even when the government already has this information. Why? Because, hey, TurboTax, then they get a bunch of money. It sustains their business. But also, Republicans are thrilled about this because people will dread having to interact with the federal government. One of the first things Elon Musk did was he deleted the free tax filing service. Why would you do that? That doesn't cost anything. Unless it is to serve this broader Republican agenda, which is to make it so that people hate their government.
And why would the government do something when some private individual could get a rent profit off of it?
Yeah. And
it's parasite. It's delivering for parasites is what they're doing.
Exactly. social conservative fiscal liberal. I'm not an accelerationist, but a Boeing-Musk partnership seems like a real destroy American air power type thing, even more than F-35.
You know who is accelerationist is Hakeem Jeffries and Josh Shapiro and Chuck Schumer, all the folks who just want to sit back
Right.
and say, look, elections have consequences. Hopefully they give it, they swing the consequences, it swings to us, and then we can act like we can't do shit.
That is the weak sauce version of shock doctrine that will never work for them, because shock doctrine is gonna always serve capital, and Republicans have more. They've got more firepower. God, it would be nice if we had leadership that understood this. Left Coaster, the free tax service exists still. Okay, that's good to know, but yeah, okay, you can still file for free right now. They still attempted to delete it.
Let's see how it lasts.
Yes. Ryan the Mainer, such a good point, Matt. The Republicans are just rolling over and showing their bellies instead of using real governmental power they have right now. I can only hope their squandering of their opportunity will eventually backfire extraordinarily.
Yep.
LA Accent says, Emma, it will affect millions of people. Those people hold up their local economies. Yes, that's true. Number 13, oh shit, this dude seems militant as F. We're really growing closer and closer to the people versus the elite. The antagonism is forcing us to combat the oligarchs. It'll be incredibly painful, and all of us won't make it, but we can coalesce to stop these Fs.
I mean, I think there's something to that. You look at the early Biden administration and the types of things that were being floated, like the $15 minimum wage, the PRO Act, and the $2 trillion Build Back Better. That wasn't stuff that was coming from neoliberals. Neoliberals don't actually have an affirm. What is Josh Shapiro saying? We're going to cut business taxes?
Yeah. It's such a misreading. It's like, it really shows how folks like Josh Shapiro have no principles at all. And our instincts were right about that guy. I can't, he's so unlikable. I mean, I really don't see him as that viable, but.
Well, if he gets much AIPAC money, is viable. And I would just say, don't ever vote. I will not vote for anybody who takes Israel money for the rest of my life. I voted for Harris,
right,
the Working Families Party last thing. I'm not doing stuff like that again. Here's a George Orwell quote. This is during World War II. I've come to the conclusion, or maybe you're leading up to it, I've come to the conclusion that it is futile to be anti-fascist while attempting to preserve capitalism. Fascism, after all, is only a development of capitalism, and the mildest democracy, so-called, is liable to turn into fascism when the pinch comes. The pinch is here.
Let's take a call here, folks. Calling from a 503 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
This is you.
Hi, Emma. Hi, Matt. This is Jim DiBartolo in Portland, Oregon.
Jim
Happy
DiBartolo, what's on your mind?
Hi, yeah. Happy, I guess, President's Day. Thanks for holding down the fort, and
Sure.
hope everybody's doing okay. Yeah, the frustration of the Democratic leadership is an absolute travesty, and their shortcomings are immense and too many to list. It's so endlessly frustrating. Hey, I just wanted to give a shout out if I could. It's the final 4 days of my Kickstarter for the graphic novel I've been working on called S Billionaires. I won't get you demonetized.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, and I just wanted to. I know Sam and you had mentioned it a few weeks ago, and it was very helpful and appreciated. I just wanted to let everybody know that if you go to Kickstarter, it's a fictional story about. It has facts and figures borrowed from our reality, plugged into a fictional setting, where billionaires are basically made to scramble and worry for their existence and choose their money or their life. And there's much more to it than that, but that is the sort of short elevator pitch.
Oh, nice. So congrats on, first of all, we're putting it up on our screen so people can see it.
Oh, thank you.
Congrats on reaching your goal, but still 4 days left to go if anybody wants to continue to support this and back the project, and then you can get a version of the graphic novel for yourself. So appreciate the call, Jim. We'll put a link to that below wherever people are watching or listening to this.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you, Matt. Cheers. I love you guys. Have a great day.
Appreciate you. Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Burger Dude said, Emma, you can at least be happy that Republicans want to make your wedding date a federal holiday for Trump's birthday. I mean, I'll take more federal holidays and then we can reappropriate it into anything.
Who was it? Somebody had a good tweet about, I think Lauren on Twitter. Basically, we should have 30 new holidays and they should all be around Union victories in the Civil War.
That would be good. We should, at the very least, we should make Election Day a federal holiday. That's a very important one so that people have the opportunity to go out and vote. Say if they work 3 jobs, it's not going to be easy for them to do that. But I'll take Trump's birthday as a federal holiday, but isn't it Flag Day? So that's how I'll celebrate it. I'll celebrate it with a variety. I'll celebrate the Antifa flag. Yeah. I'll burn the flag for that as an
constitutionally
protected
recognized free speech right in this country. And anyone who has a problem with it should be,
that's un-American. 16 Ton says, after hearing Matt discuss the economic practice of enclosure in proto and fully capitalist systems, I've started using that as a starting point when discussing with other people about why every product and service keeps getting more expensive and worse in quality. So far, it really seems to resonate. Thanks, MR Crew.
Look at the TikTok or what's the app? Twitter. The purchase of Twitter, which, somebody who's doing better work than he had ever been doing, Michael Tracy. I like his criticism of Musk, whatever. But
he's back to his roots, like hating the neocons, I think.
Which is good. Which is better than when he was bootlicking Elon Musk, taking over Twitter and saying, oh, yeah, what does he do? We should fire all these workers that just sit on their ass all the time. No, those people should own the company. Though anybody who's been working at Twitter for that long shouldn't have just been allowed to be kicked out by some billionaire because he had the money. We need the people who actually make these. I'm talking engineers, coders. All these people need to stand up for themselves because that could happen is basically prefiguring everything we're seeing with the FAA and all that stuff. Those people created that application, and what happened was investors are like, actually, I'm sitting on my ass, not getting any passive income from this. Fire a bunch of people, and who cares if search sucks? Who cares if it's a way buggier? I want my return on investment. That's all that's happening. That's what it is to run this stuff like a business.
It's enshittification. They've reached a saturation point. So what can they do except cut labor costs for the people that are investors? This is what happens when it gets this big. They need to be broken up and then, of course, taxed out of existence, the billionaires at the very least.
Or nationalized.
Certain
of these things, once they get to a certain monopoly level, need to be regulated like Ma Bell. I think I'm good on antitrust for a bunch of things, but I also think at a certain point, like AI, whichever one of these systems wins the monopoly and is basically the AI of choice, should be nationalized. And the investors of it should get no compensation for it. It should be taken. And, because what they're doing is building it off of stolen work anyway. Facebook just admitted to using the same service I do to get books sometimes, LibGen. And they've been plugging in thousands and thousands of books they stole to train their models. And that is no different than what Google did. Google decided it's going to start logging the entire internet and scanning books from libraries into their system to make it smarter. The valuation is from theft. Talk about enclosure. That is enclosure.
Yeah, I mean, and stealing. They say they care about intellectual property, but not when
they don't want China to take their shit.
Now when they're making AI models, I freaking tried to post a clip of a Johnny Cash song on Instagram, and they made me Sony claim copyright immediately and made me take it down. So I'm not even profiting off of that. I just wanted to post this song, but AI can take all books wholesale and incorporate them into their models, but that's not an intellectual property violation. I mean, give me a break.
You pay $18 now for the I don't, but people do, for the highest Spotify thing where it's coming out with like better quality or whatever. That's more than the artists get.
Yeah, right. Let's what should we get to here? Hold on. I have it written down that I wanted to. Okay, now that since we've been raging about Hakeem Jeffries, Here he is on MSNBC with Nicole Wallace talking about Eric Adams, the New York City mayor, and the Department of Justice. Sam and I covered this extensively on Friday, but there was a bombshell accusation by Donald Trump's interim, I guess it was U.S. attorney at the Southern District, who was a lifelong, basically conservative, had clerked for Scalia, and she resigned and accused the Trump administration of basically engaging in a quid pro quo. She said it in her letter. Then there were multiple folks who resigned rather than implement the dropping of this Adams case so that he could enforce Trump's deportations regime until they finally got to their Bork, somebody who was going to appease Donald Trump and his mafia-style tactics over there at the department, or I guess with Pam Bondi as the Attorney General. And so this is such a clear violation of the Constitution and the law, and it's one of the many constitutional crises that we're facing right now. So good thing we have Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader of the Democratic Party, who is also from the state that this embattled, corrupt mayor is serving in. Good thing we have him to say, hey, this is outrageous. Oh, wait.
I want to ask your opinion about Eric Adams' ability to govern the city of New York. And if you agree with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who says he's currently being coerced by Donald Trump.
He's going to have to make the case to New Yorkers that he still has the capacity to behave as an independently elected official, not someone who's taking orders or who is on a short leash relative to the Department of Justice. It should trouble everyone that this decision was made to recommend the dismissal of charges, which ultimately a judge will have to approve, but only to dismiss the charges without prejudice, which effectively means it can be brought back at any point in time. And so there is a prosecutorial gun being put to the head of the elected mayor of the city of New York. That's deeply disturbing. And the mayor's going to have to answer those questions to the people that I represent in Brooklyn and to the people throughout New York City.
Is he compromised?
I think that's a legitimate question to ask, and he's going to have to answer that question sooner rather than later.
It's not a question.
Not just through his words, but through his actions.
I mean,
Okay. It's just, how can Danielle Sassoon, again, somebody who Trump had appointed on January 21st, how long ago? What was this, 2017? Oh, 2025. So she was in her position for 3 weeks. Again, that woke mind virus, it's very, very contagious. This was her letter here. On February 10th, 2025, I received a memorandum from Acting Deputy Attorney General Emile Beauvais directing me to dismiss the indictment against Mayor Eric Adams without prejudice subject to certain conditions which require leave of court. I do not repeat here the evidence against Adams that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed federal crimes. Mr. Beauvais rightly has never called into question that the case team conducted this investigation with integrity and that the charges against Adams are serious and supported by fact and law. Mr. Beauvais' memo, however, which directs me to dismiss an indictment returned by a duly constituted grand jury for reasons having nothing to do with the strength of the case, raises serious concerns that render the contemplated dismissal inconsistent with my ability and duty to prosecute federal crimes without fear or favor and to advance good faith arguments before the courts. Just the scroll down to the second page here, where she explains, but the footnote was the part that was the most explosive. She says in this footnote very clearly, I attended a meeting on January 31st, 2025 with Mr. Beauvais, Adams's counsel, by the way, Trump's counsel as well. And members of my office, Adams's attorneys, repeatedly urged what amounted to a quid pro quo, indicating that Adams would be in a position to assist with the department's enforcement priorities only if the indictment were dismissed. Mr. Beauvais admonished a member of my team who took notes during the meeting and directed the collection of those notes at the meeting's conclusion. This is, again, a Scalia clerk, a Federalist Society conservative, a Trump appointee from less than a month ago, who is more explicit about the acts of criminality involving Eric Adams and Donald Trump than the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries when being served up on a silver platter that very notion by a former Republican operative on MSNBC, Nicole Wallace, who seemed more perturbed by his lack of strong language than he did. Quid pro quo said there by Sassoon. Who is Eric Adams' constituency? He's about to completely tank out in the polls. Who is Hakeem Jeffries defending? Who is this for? Who is this for? Because for me, it's not as simple to be like, oh, it's about, Eric Adams. He's an establishment Democrat. No, he's a former Republican. He's got no real ties to the party. You could easily cast him aside, except that they're afraid to take a position. If the roles had been reversed and Biden was threatening like Eric Adams with this indictment to say, you got to implement my DEI policies or else, I'll drop these charges if you put in DEI in New York City and we'll hold that over your head until we actually see that you faithfully execute it. The amount of scandal that this would be on the right and the amount that Republicans would be screaming from their rooftops about this would be indescribable. I mean, it's just a complete failure. And AOC calling for his resignation is exactly what the entire Democratic Party should be following suit on that front.
And calling Hochul to remove him.
Yes.
And people might be wondering, why is that Hakeem Jeffries a clear charisma suck? Why is he leading the party right now? 2 reasons. He's reliable on corporate interests. He went to California, which is quite a ways away from New York City, to go butter up Silicon Valley tech executives. That was a few days after he was talking to Zionist groups about how, look, what we accomplished under Biden. He, 10 years ago, was at a rally saying, Israel now, Israel, what was it? Israel today, Israel tomorrow, Israel forever. That's why he's been groomed for this position.
The donor class. I mean, Nancy Pelosi was very famous about being able to rake in donor money, and Jeffries is her heir apparent. But she's so far has proved to be a more talented leader of the Democrats than he has, because this has been outrageous. I mean, I frankly I can't see her coming out there and giving that mealy mouth of a response. She's been horrible on some things, but at least she did some more partisanship than this. I mean, the level of lack of fight here is it's pissing off mainstream liberals. They're going, that press conference that Jeffries did where he said, I have no leverage, resonated beyond just lefty circles.
They've been failed. Liberals have been failed.
They've been failed.
They were failed last year.
They've been told that resisting Donald Trump is the most important thing. And now all of their leaders are saying, what can we do? Let's wait and see. Well, we don't have any leverage. And the thing is that those folks actually believed it. As do I, as should we all. But leadership is not on the same page.
I find it a little concerning with Jeffries too. I'm curious if you guys think this is just an aesthetic thing for him, but he is literally subject verb Democrat talking points. I don't know if he's actually capable of offering an opinion on something.
No.
He literally anytime he probably in that interview about his question about Eric Adams probably somehow managed to shoehorn in him saying we're building the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, as well as saying that we're going to work on comprehensive immigration reform in a bipartisan way. He has no ability to communicate anything that what seemingly is put into a binder for him by his aides and then highlighted. It's we talk about authenticity, and this is about being a currency right now for politicians, and this is what we have as the House Minority Leader.
Because unless they are explicitly social democratic, and Ken Klippenstein made a joke, Hakeem Jeffries is making me second guess the gerontocracy focus. Good, because the gerontocracy is not the problem here. It's not. And Pelosi and what was good about Biden before he became a mass murderer was that they existed in a time where actually politics was even better, even more functional, more responsive than the current Democrats are. This new crop, unless they, again, are explicitly either progressive or social democratic, they're going to be worse. They are going to be more craven, and they're going to be less likely, less able to fight. And the way they will be able to fight is going to be counterproductive.
JR in Philly says Hakeem Jeffries is when you order Obama from Temu. Vegetable sauce. Your Democratic leadership is doing nothing because they are benefiting personally, if not politically.
Yeah, they're accelerationists.
Mayor Eric says, this is America, baby, the New York City of the world. Emma Vingman, why you be my hater? All right, thanks, Eric. God is still on the toilet says 3 deputy mayors in New York City intend to quit protests over Eric Adams' continuing role as mayor. Exactly.
Hey, he's got to prove. He's got a lot of questions to answer. No, we're done asking questions, Hakeem.
Yes, it's the conclusion is here. We have our answers. Oh, this is important. So, speaking of Ken Klippenstein, he uncovered this, or at the very least published this, and it made the rounds, which is good, because this is a very informative admission. Here's Mike Gallagher, a Republican former representative from Wisconsin. He now works at Palantir, and he's here with Senator Mark Warner, who is very high up in, I guess, in Senate foreign relations.
So, for some context, too, Gallagher, before he left Congress, was the chair of the China subcommittee, kind of like the sort of like House committee about select committee on kind of like the threat of China economically and politically. And Warner is now ranking member, but
Senate Intelligence, not
chair,
foreign relations.
Yeah, he was the chair and now ranking member of the Intelligence Committee.
All right. Yes, exactly. So they're speaking essentially at this conference, at the Munich Security Conference, where we'll probably play a little bit of J.D. Vance's speech later. And basically, they admit what was behind the TikTok ban in terms of the true motivations.
Mike, how did that legislation pass so quickly? If this is correct and there's not a lot of people that understand, somebody understood something.
I want to see if you're going to tell the real story.
Okay, the real. Well, first of all, let the record
We're talking
reflect.
about the TikTok legislation.
I left.
There's no AI legislation.
Senator, I left to produce more human beings, and they cost money. They're not making me money. And if everyone had followed Frank and my Irish Catholic lead and repopulated the earth, we would have already won this Cold War competition. How did it pass so quickly? I know we're running out of time. One, we stole the senator's work, and he did a lot of the, sincerely, a lot of yeoman's work in drafting an initial bill. We were able to sort of learn from that experience. We refined the approach. We worked with him. We worked with the executive branch. So we had a bipartisan consensus. We had the executive branch, but the bill was still dead until October 7th. And people started to see a bunch of anti-Semitic content on the platform. And our bill had legs again. And then there was a huge miscalculation by TikTok. When it became apparent that we were going to pass it out of committee, they forced sort of a pop-up on the app that allowed people to call their members of Congress.
Let's just pause
and
it for a
kids were
sec.
calling into their members of Congress during school hours.
So we'll go back 10 seconds. I just want to lay out what was just admitted to there. Is that October 7th, because it was showing after the fact a pro-Palestinian narrative, which is just the reality, meaning that these are people who are the victims of American and Israeli ethnic cleansing and genocide. And here are the horrible images that you're going to see on your phone. I think it had a real effect on the election in the sense that the party that was responsible for this lost.
Decided they'd rather support Israel than win an election.
And it's not folks that went to the ballot box and voted for the Republican that are really the problem, although there were, I'm sure, some folks that did that with Trump. It was a lot of people that stayed home. And this is an admission here by somebody who now works for Palantir, former Republican, that what got it over the finish line and got it into the bill that included Ukraine and Israel funding for weapons was the fact that it was showing too much of a pro-Palestinian, and he would say anti-Semitic narrative on TikTok. Now, Palantir, it's important to note, is founded by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is a major investor in Facebook, was at the outset. I'm not sure what his position is right now, but at the very least, he's made billions from Facebook and now Meta. Guess what's Meta's biggest competitor? TikTok. Because Instagram is the app that would benefit the most from TikTok being banned. That's pretty important to disclose that. He works for Palantir now, which was founded by the same guy who has a major stake in Facebook, biggest competitor to TikTok. And yes, he was on the board of Meta until he left in 2022. Peter Thiel did, but I would not be shocked if, I doubt he sold all of what he has invested in there and that. But either way, let's go back a little bit and
so this
hear
is
the rest of this.
This would be clear to people. This is Democrat Senator Mark Warner.
Yep.
Who started all the work on this, and then it got pushed to the finish line by a Palantir person.
From Virginia, Mark Warner, where a lot of our weapons manufacturing and that kind of lobbying happens.
Became apparent that we were going to pass it out of committee. They forced sort of a pop-up on the app that allowed people to call their members of Congress, and kids were calling into their members of Congress during school hours threatening to commit suicide if TikTok went away. And for those of us who are concerned about the use of this platform for propaganda purposes or brainwashing, it sort of proved the point in the moment, and suddenly the bill passed. So it was the threat of espionage, the threat of propaganda, the good work of Senator Warner, and a few other players that all conspired.
And he got it out of a committee that is the most diverse in the House.
Oh, good.
From left to right, 50-0 after a classified. That was he did it was
evil.
People would not have bet on, but he and his Democratic colleagues did some great.
But to your point about democracy, I mean, that was a 3-year endeavor and it failed, 100 times. And we just had to keep working it.
So let me do this. We are out of.
Do you think that woman in the middle is a little bit like, you guys revealed a bit too much here as you're talking about democracy and we banned this app because there was too much information and free speech on it that we didn't like. Anyway, the Free Speech Party, the Republican Party that I represent, no contradiction there. Want to talk about propaganda? There was a shooting down in Miami. I guess it was a few days ago. Horrific. I think that this guy killed 2 Israeli tourists.
Well, I don't know if they're dead or not.
Okay. We won't, I guess, then go into more of the details on this. But there was a shooting that was...
An Ashkenazi Jew shot 2 Mizrahi Jews thinking they were Arabs. And then now the Mizrahi Jews are saying that they were shot by a Palestinian.
Yeah.
Zionism...
Did TikTok do that? Or was that Zionism?
Zionism is the acute threat of hatred to confront in the world right now, and it is actually motivating policy towards censorship. And J.D. Vance is marching around Europe talking about all how bad censorship is, not saying a thing about suppressing speech that is critical of Israel, because he supports that, because the way they use censorship is as a stolen bike that they're going to ditch the second it's not useful to them. Anyone who's pandering to the right that their free speech stuff is sincere is probably taking money from Rumble.
Yeah. Well, at this same conference, you teed that up perfectly, Matt. Here's J.D. Vance, Munich Security Conference. This pissed off a lot of people in Europe over the weekend. But this part in particular bothers me. And it bothered folks in Germany, because here he is speaking about the dangers of shutting people out of the political process. You may wonder what he's talking about. Well, he makes it quite clear. He uses the word firewall, and that's very important, because he's referring to the fact that in German politics, certain political parties are subjected to a firewall, which means that if you are too Holocaust deniee, we're not going to work with you. And that includes, although it's kind of falling apart right now as conservatives in Germany begin to entertain doing what Musk is actually pressuring them to do, they are potentially going to work with this AfD party, even though they're not supposed to because they've engaged in the Holocaust denial, to form a far-right government. with the elections coming up in a few weeks. And this is Musk, JD Vance, but doing the work of Elon Musk, who spoke at the AFD rally the same week he did that Nazi salute at the inauguration, because they're trying to elevate this particular far-right element. So Vance goes in and basically election interferes and does the same thing as the vice president of the United States.
The dismissing people, dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Can you pause it? All right. This disingenuous twerp. Greta Thunberg is not the richest man on the planet. She's an activist who has had a mostly organic rise to prominence. That I would say it's mostly organic because, yeah, there were some maybe liberal institutions that liked her when she spoke out some years ago and led protests when she came over to the United States on that solar-powered boat. But for the most part, she's kind of dropped off in terms of media coverage here domestically because she has spent the past few years being critical of Israel's genocide in Gaza. All she has is the power of her voice and her social media presence. What Elon Musk has is a social media platform and the most money that one human being has currently on the planet. So
and now the power of Congress, apparently. It's prominence versus power. Like,
right.
Greta had prominence, but what did she actually get to do with it? Like, other than
is she winning?
Smeared as an anti-Semite by some freak Zionist for having an octopus in the background of one of her shots.
Yeah, I mean, it's not working. You're about to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accords. We've crossed the 1.5 degree Celsius threshold that sets off the horrific chain reaction of weather events and destroys a lot of our biodiversity that she was warning about many years ago. Has she won? Like, we're going to really compare the power of a teenager from Sweden who got famous for her activism with the guy who has the most money on the planet. This is
the guy making spy satellites.
Yes, this is how the right pretends like these power dynamics are non-existent, and anything that occurs from that is natural. So,
and sorry, are we going to get to like the part where we're talking about the firewall?
Yeah, let's get to that. It's just that triggered me. So disingenuous.
With all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Crickets.
But what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters. There's no room for firewalls. You either uphold the principle or you don't. Europeans, the people, have a voice. European leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future.
Okay, great. Don't be afraid of the future. Unburden yourself from your past, I say in Munich, as I endorse a far-right party that is extremist in its rhetoric against immigrants and has...
Let's be clear, like, they are scapegoating Germany's failure to basically be continued economic power. They can't fucking make cars anymore, Germany. Maybe that's an overstatement, but they're not selling as well as they used to. They're scapegoating that on immigrants, just like JD Vance and all the folks here are doing. It's very simple what's happening. And Germans should know that playbook a little bit better. And look, I don't know. I think Germans sort of suppress. I think Germany's frankly failed to confront its Nazi past, not just the measures of like the anti-Holocaust now stuff. I think that stuff is very understandable, But when you are supporting an Israeli genocide of Palestinians and suppressing anybody who criticizes that, criminalizing them, stopping speeches, wasn't Varoufakis supposed to speak in Germany? Wasn't that Germany?
I believe so.
You fail. But that's the actual problem. And JD Vance isn't actually here to help that failure. He's here to accelerate it. Because the firewall he wants is the continued one, suppressing speech critical of Israel, and just let the Nazis walk.
Vance went to on the same day he said that thing about the firewall, he went to a concentration camp. And
then met with Weidel, one of the AfD leaders, and did not meet with Schultz, the actual chancellor.
Sorry. It wasn't the same day as the speech. On the same day he met with the AfD leader, he went to a concentration camp.
He went to Dachau and then went to meet with Alice Weidel as opposed to Olaf Scholz, who actually leads the country.
But to Matt's point about like where we failed, that kind of empty gesture towards the Holocaust, which is really just like World War II memorialization from our end, because there's no systemic analysis or reckoning with fascism.
Reason to use the military
is a way to cover up the fact that the modern Nazi is also a Zionist. The modern Nazi is a Zionist, and the modern Nazi is engaging in Holocaust denial in the current form. And the modern Nazi is the border fascist. The modern Nazi talks about how Muslims are inherently barbaric and their religion is going to pervert us and come for our women. The modern Nazi wants the migrant to drown in the sea. And that's what's happening in Europe right now. So don't be fooled by Usha Vance and JD going and paying lip service to the Holocaust, because they are endorsing a Holocaust as we speak, as is the entire Republican Party and many members of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and you're exactly right to point the Zionist influence in this. Dave Rubin had a guy, David Friedman, on, who is, I believe, an Israeli diplomat, closely after October 7th, and his solution was stop accepting refugees. We started accepting refugees. Why?
Yeah.
Because of the fucking Holocaust. And yet we get Zionist diplomats going on right-wing shows in America to say, actually, you need to do what we do, is build more walls and enforce them with killing.
Yep. All right, guys. One more call. Then we'll get to a clip or two. Calling from a 612 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
This is you.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm from the Twin Cities.
Helen from the Twin Cities. What's on your mind?
So last night I was at a work party, and my mom kind of brought up, I work with my mom, and my mom brought up in front of our boss the sort of trans. She thought that it was absurd that Trump banned trans women in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And my boss was like, oh, well, I can see it. And I kind of got heated, and I'm not really good at debating or articulating my thoughts and opinions. And it was, and I kind of told him, because my second job, I work at a queer bar. I have trans friends, and it's something that I care passionately, because I have trans people and queer people in my life, and to see them, to see the harm that's being done to them, and them getting hurt by all this legislation. And even though, my boss is a good dude, and he, I just don't think he's really that well informed. He kind of views trans people in sports kind of like PEDs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of wondering, how do you think I should sort of try to explain to people sort of my thoughts and opinions without getting very
heated?
Heated, and I'll admit that it was after a couple of drinks.
Oh,
so
well, we've all been there.
That didn't help.
We've all been there. We've all been there. And I will say this too, Sam's given me this advice. You have to also be very conscious of it as a woman too, because if you get emotional, even though anger is an emotion too, and when men express that, it's not necessarily described as an emotion, but you can't give them that because it causes them to dismiss you. So that would be my one piece of advice, which is like, try to disassociate in those moments and basically hold on to your calm, because you're going to be able to make your point more effectively if men don't have an opportunity to dismiss you. I don't always follow that advice, but that's what I'd go to. And then I would lean into the fact that there are fewer than 10 transgender athletes that are subjected to this ban. And I would ask these individuals and say, even though, because they don't understand hormones if they're having this conversation with you. So the best way to meet them where they're at, to get them to think about why they have this impulse, is to say there's fewer than 10 trans athletes in the NCAA. You really think that this is an important problem that we should be focused on? And then you can redirect the conversation to areas that make more sense. Like, the government should be making our healthcare better, our housing better. But I'm not sure what your boss's class is. He may be less susceptible to those arguments.
Right. Yeah. And I tried to bring that up, but I didn't do that in a very good way. So
I'm sure it was great. And either way, you got to like kind of tipsy tell off your boss. And you're all right with that? You're all set? He didn't fire you or anything, right?
No. I mean, after we had that little spat, he got me a shot of tequila. So I think we're good. And, he knows I do a good job, and he was very, despite our little back and forth, he was still respectful, and he was just like, I'm totally cool with having disagreements with people. So
sounds like you have kind of a fun, at least, alcohol fueled office space, which, hey, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, it was like our holiday party. So
there you go.
Yeah.
That's time to let loose.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, appreciate the call. Thanks so much, Helen.
All right. Thanks for having me.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Damn it. I did the thing. Hope you enjoy your food. You too. No.
How are you? Good. How are you? Good. How are you?
Oh. Bane of my existence. Okay. Maybe we should just have some fun a little bit here. Gosh, there's some good ones, but maybe the Matt Walsh one. So Matt Walsh is getting into motivational content. He wants men to feel like they have a purpose, and so they're doing kind of like, I don't know what this looks like. It looks like an intro to an HR meeting pre-recorded video that you would have, / something that's made with AI from 2 years ago.
Are you familiar with these retreats for men that go on sometimes?
Andrew Tate's War Room, or the ones that are still kind of rapey, but less so?
On a recent season of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Teresa Giudice's new husband went on one. And,
spoiler alert.
And basically, it was like him and like 8 other shirtless men who like forced him to make like an on-camera apology to his ex-wife, where he was like, I loved you. I fucking loved you. I should have done. I'm sorry. They're like, you don't mean it. You don't mean it. And they make him force him again to like basically coerce this confession out of him.
So it's kind of a Jordan Peterson-y cult vibe.
This seems like some of the stuff that maybe would be in the onboarding material for some of these retreats.
And they definitely don't hook up with each other.
No,
don't even imply it. Anyway, Matt Walsh has some advice for men.
Men love going on missions. A quest, technically, is a long journey in search of something. So, you go on a quest to find the buried treasure. You go on a mission to save the damsel locked in the tower guarded by the evil dragon. So these terms are similar, but not exactly the same. You might even say that a quest is a mission with a puzzle attached. What we hate are pointless puzzles. Okay, we hate having to crack some complicated code when the answer...
Complicated code, like, a woman blathering. So,
oh my God, stop talking. It's too complicated.
A quest is a long journey with a puzzle attached, and the journey has the princess at the end. But why do you hate? But he says that men like quests and journeys, but they don't like. But a quest would involve a puzzle, but they don't like pointless puzzles, which are the ones that your bitch wife would give you.
Yeah, so the mission is for like the knight finding the damsel in the tower.
Mm-hmm.
The quest is for like maybe a less like a tangible goal that doesn't involve another person, like a finding a pot of gold or solving a puzzle for a commodity or something.
But there can be good quests and bad quests.
Right,
and
I
a quest
think so.
can be a journey, but a journey can be a quest, but not necessarily the other way around.
But there are certain bad quests because bad quests involve puzzles that are annoying.
Right, okay. So we have 3 different categories of male empowerment. We have a journey, which is unequivocally good.
Always good.
We have and then we have a quest, but then that forks. You can have a good quest, which still involves getting a hot lady at the end, and a bad quest, but both quests involve puzzles, and the bad quest is nagging. Okay, start over. It's really hard to figure out.
The taxonomy is important because there's a lot of definitions for being a man.
A lot of rules. It sounds like it's a little cumbersome, but I don't know.
Men love going on missions. A quest, technically, is a long journey in search of something. So, you go on a quest to find the buried treasure.
Please, just start over because I love the animation of missions with emphasis, and it's in yellow font like a construction site, so maybe you get to wear an outfit.
Men love going on missions.
Missions.
Men love going on missions. A quest, technically, is a long journey in search of something. So, you go on a quest to find the buried treasure. You go on a mission to save the damsel locked in the tower guarded by the evil dragon. So
nice.
These terms are similar, but not exactly the same. You might even say that a quest is a mission with a puzzle attached. What we hate are pointless puzzles. Okay, we hate having to crack some complicated code when the answer could be easily obtained some other way. I know for me, as a man, actual puzzles in a box, I hate those. I'm not going to do them because the picture of what the thing is on the box. It is the box. So why do I need to do it? I'm going to spend 6 hours putting a puzzle together to just recreate the picture. It's already right there. I don't see a point to it, so I don't want to do it. In a relationship, a man gets frustrated when his wife wants something or is upset about something and won't just come out and say what it is. That's the kind of puzzle we hate because it's artificial, it's arbitrary. The woman is creating a puzzle and wasting our time and generating frustration and friction needlessly. But
can you pause it? All right. So I do love this. I love.
As a married man, I could totally empathize with this.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting with my wife doing a puzzle and she asks me something that I don't get, I'm like, this is 2 unnecessary puzzles. I don't want to be doing this anymore.
You need to be. You should be on a journey, and I could be on a journey right now.
I'm not on a mission right now.
It's just amazing. Like you unpack just like learned things when you're growing up about like how certain men talk to women, and it really is this inherent dismissal. Because what he's saying here is that if a wife presents you with a problem that is not easily solvable, it's because and you're frustrated by it. This isn't about like learning a little bit more about where her feelings are coming from or what she may be asking of you, and having the patience to sit with the puzzle and make it so that she feels happy in the relationship and you have a partnership. No. That is her creating an obstacle for you and creating a puzzle that's very frustrating that leads to nowhere, because what could you be saying that has any value? This is just something, it's a vehicle to frustrate you. It's not about her emotions. It's a vehicle to frustrate you as a man. Let's go back a little bit.
This is also an incredible stitching together
of stock footage.
Of
yes, I like this where they're arguing, and it didn't even take a minute. We're at 59 seconds. I knew that it was leading to women be bitches, but he sped run it right there.
Look how unreasonable she's being in the stock photo.
I know, obviously.
You can tell this guy is so puzzled right now.
We hate because it's artificial, it's arbitrary. The woman is creating a puzzle and wasting our time and generating frustration and friction needlessly. But if there is a puzzle that actually needs to be solved in pursuit of some ultimate goal, some mission, well, then we love that. That's a thrill. And this begins at the earliest ages. Pretty much all of a boy's daydreaming
I'm sorry.
and make-believe.
If there's a puzzle with an ultimate mission, they show a Rubik's Cube. I mean, someone points out here in our IMs, Bullprog, Rubik's Cube is objectively manly and not pointless. But how is that different than solving a puzzle?
Sorry, you can look at a picture of a solved Rubik's Cube.
You can. That's the goal.
And that's not annoying to you?
That's odd, but it's because it's in a masculine shape.
And maybe because you use your hands, it's like something you hold. It's not on a stupid table.
Anyway, keep going.
Ultimate goal, some mission.
Goal of
well,
the
then
cube.
we love that. That's a thrill.
That's a mission?
And this begins at the earliest ages. Pretty much all of a boy's daydreaming and make-believe revolves around him going on grand adventures and fighting bad guys and saving the day. Which that alone tells you almost everything you need to know about the innate differences between boys and girls and men and women. Starting with the fact that there are innate differences that go beyond the physical. There are also these innate psychological and I would say spiritual differences. Maybe every once in a while you'll have a girl that does this kind of make-believe thing where she's fighting bad guys, but I've never even seen that. But for boys, this just comes natural. It's all they ever do.
And
that continues even into adulthood, by the way.
All right.
Into
Into adulthood.
daydreaming and everything.
All right, we're good. We're good. So I found
that get to the part where he said even his kids went to Lowe's to get some firewood or something, and that was a big adventure. It was a big mission for them.
I played so much make believe. Even the cave thing. I remember one of my earliest memories was having my mom tie a dish towel around my neck so I could pretend to have a cave. But I am a woman. And I'm a leftist woman, so I'm probably disconnected from my femininity in some way.
You aren't going on missions.
I mean, gosh, girls should not even go to camp if that's the case.
Also, it's not as if there have ever been superheroes who are women.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is. I mean, women
There's not even anyone for them to emulate.
Can you imagine? There's so much coddling of young men and boys' feelings by the right. And for me, I do think it's important to point out that capitalism has alienated men in the way that they can't maybe achieve what they've been told is the masculine ideal of having all this money, providing for a family, being a sole provider potentially, right? And having your wife stay at home. Perhaps that's how their dad and mother lived, and they don't have that capacity at this point because we are in an era of such incoming wealth inequality. But to frame this as an issue basically exclusively for men in terms of lack of meaning is really mostly on the right just to cover for excusing misogyny. Because, look at how that's even framed. Men inherently are active participants in society. Girls aren't like that. They don't daydream about taking action and being on missions. What do they daydream about? Dolls and stupid puzzles where they sit on their ass? No. We are the drivers of society, and we have to respect that about men. And I saw this about in the reaction to Donald Trump's victory. Gosh, there must be so many alienated men in society. Is there any consideration to how a society of rampant misogyny and rape culture alienates women? Or are we just cool with that? Because that's how I felt after the election. I saw a flawed, candidate in Kamala Harris who was a little bit too centrist and who had been a part of an administration that committed genocide, and there were a ton of issues there. But just on the base level of this, she schooled him in the debate. She could speak in complete sentences. And Donald Trump was running around talking about the Haitians are eating cats and dogs and how Kamala Harris should basically get smacked around. And in reaction to that result, you have a bunch of right-wingers talking about how men feel alienated from society. How about women feel a little alienated by never having representation as a president, having somebody who is a serial sexual predator beat 2 women in elections, and the only time that he lost was to a white male politician who has been throughout his career described as very mediocre. Does that create some sort of feeling of alienation? Or do men just get to feel alienated when they're on top and when they're not, which is never?
And I think it's also the answer to that for people on the right is I mean, sometimes you don't, I think, see it as plainly stated, but I think it just sometimes jumps out in sort of like moments of rare honesty about why men are alien, or sort of them not wanting to actually answer the question of why men are alienated. It kind of came out in the interview from last week you did on Thursday with Jamie Tossin and Matt Shea about Clown World, their book about embedding with Andrew Tate and his coterie of associates. Is that
who Trump is cozying up to now, trying to get Romania
to drop their charges or sort of alleviate
unrestrict him.
Yes, house arrest or whatever it is over there currently. But because they sort of made this point, which is like, implicit in trying to encourage people to continue to watch their material is sort of like don't commiserate with your friends in person. In furtherance of that, don't meet new people. Don't join a union.
Right.
Don't volunteer in your community to help people who are more marginalized than you are. Don't take up a hobby, because what should your hobby be and what should your cause be? Watching more of my videos.
And
so I can be about how alienated you are.
And
about
how many rules there are.
About the rules you need to be following. And about how women are an impediment to that. And not only that, sprinkled in with that for some of Steven Crowder's videos is, also you need to homeschool your kids. We need to defund public education in school, and education needs to go back to the home. Also, if you're watching Fox and you hear Dana Perino say, our enemy right now is public sector unions. So like, even in the endless kind of like, ever extending maw of content that these people want you to watch, implicit in it is also like, we do not want you to have any semblance of community that makes you feel emboldened in any capacity.
Completely. And, it's odd. I was seeing some just pop culture commentary because I guess Pete Davidson did some interview recently, and it was like, why was there this reaction specifically from right-wing men that in those kind of incel circles about him dating beautiful women and this like outrage, where I didn't really see that from women? And it's because, honestly, of this right-wing manosphere set of rules that have been created where there is and Jordan Peterson, right, where they create these extremely rigid rules and structures, and they define what kind of man a woman might be interested in. And it's always in a caricature in their mind of somebody who's an alpha or a sigma and has a bunch of muscles, or in the sigma case has something to offer intellectually and, is above it all. And they paint all these pictures of what is desirable for women. And if like a guy like that comes out and proves them all wrong, it's, even though I don't even understand what they're saying about him, they think he's unattractive, which I would disagree with. That creates like an anxiety where it's like, well, did these rules mean anything at all? Did they mean anything? Did I have to be just completely bound by my insecurity and trying to live up to these things that I could never abide by? Did women just want me to be myself? And I think that's the fear. That's the fear of it. That kind of, and fixation on other men from men is at the root of. But with that said, we're gonna wrap up here. Turn off the voicemail. Sorry guys. Read some IMs and get out of here. That abortion nurse says women are nothing more than a mission, or was the quest. Zane, young men in the audience don't follow Matt Walsh's lead here. Not a good idea to compare women to a puzzle box you have no interest in solving. Emma's distant cousin. Today I'm going to do something I want to do that I haven't done for about 25 years when I was in high school, and that's roller skate. Very nice.
No, you need to watch more Andrew Tate videos.
Yeah, or you're roller skating. That's pretty gay. Why would you be
going outside? You're not watching my videos.
Dave from Jamaica. I am starting to see why conservatives love AI art. Matt Walsh has such a limited view of what men can be. Limited view of what adventure is. I know. So, I mean, conservatism is all about burdening yourself with unnecessary rules about society.
And again, with this archetype of the knight in the tower saving the damsel, always a misunderstanding of art. Read the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. They were gruesome.
Yes.
Like they were like cautionary tales about overextending your ambition and making the poor decisions, which led to violent outcomes. It wasn't always like, oh, this guy was so hot and he saved Sleeping Beauty. Oh my God! Wow.
But you see, that's their vision of masculinity. It's why they freak out about something like Lake and Riley,
right?
Or my story about the subway.
Yes.
Because that's the kind of woman that they envision being a savior for. And if the woman doesn't need a savior, what is my place as a masculine entity? Right? That's the anxiety. CPG, a long quest to defeat the bad guys. That's why I listened to the MR crew roast Matt Walsh. Kyle Leck. We have a complicated code. Do you mean like the difference between a journey, a quest, and a mission? Like that kind of code? Allie from New Hampshire. Bro, just say you hate your wife. Oh my God. Top Herky. Can we get that Matt Walsh bit played to the Hope Corps music? LOL. I know. Well, we're figuring out the soundboard, guys. Dave from Upstate says, for the love of God, please add Bradley's stupid yell to the soundboard. we have a human soundboard right here. Worcester Don Draper. A while back, I looked at the ad efforts for the Daily Wire. They had a massive amount of money dedicated to marriage counseling keywords on Google search. I think Daily Wire's insertion point to a lot of guys is when marriages get rocky. They grab guys when they start to go their own way. That's fascinating. Charlie She Her. Maybe bring up that trans men will be classified as biological women under these sort of bans and will in fact cause the exact scenario they claim to want to avoid will happen when trans guys have to play on the girls' team or use the girls' room, the latter of which is actually dangerous for them. They don't care about it. 9 to 5 Zionism ended up being successful largely because of the racist genocidal refusal of us and England to accept Jewish refugees. People like my grandparents could easily flee to British Palestine, where immigration was also controlled, but they all allowed Zionist settlements. Yes, there's also an Oscar award-winning film that I think explores that as well, or an Oscar nominee this year, The Brutalist, that explores that. 3 more. Snorkasser. As a proud Canadian, I think we should take a note from the Republicans and treat Pierre Poilievre, I hope I said it right this time, like they do the CFPB.
I think it's Poilievre, I'm pretty sure.
Poilievre. I took a semester of French in college and it did me no good. I've always been really bad at languages.
Same.
Like better at math, and that is saying something. The CFPB only ever refer to him by his initials. 1, it's PP, you mean. It's funny, too. Emma and Sam would need to practice the pronunciation. It's a good point. Oh, El Canipsion says, last ditch attempt for a 30th birthday shofar. Do we have the capacity to do that, Bradley?
I'll try.
Matt just had to go, so it's just the two of us. We're going to... El Canipsion, you are such a regular IMer that we're going to make it work here. So we have Bradley coming up, the soundboard, shofar. Do, 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 do. Happy 30th, El Canipsion. And the final I am of the day. Fred J. Walsh, regarding the alienation of women by the poisonousness of present trends, well said, Emma. Too many of us need to turn the telescope around and get a clue. Well, I appreciate that, Fred. Thank you, guys. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.